Hello and welcome back. This is part 7 of yet another inventory system, but wait. And today we will be starting on the UI. I say starting because over the next however many series or episodes, we will be changing the UI, adding different things to the UI. I'll also be showing you some nice little animated UIs, and then also later on we will be going to a different style of UI completely, in a different style of inventory system completely. So the UI is something that will morph and change as we go along, but today we're going to set up the basics of the UI so that we can actually see something on screen. So at the moment we have, just if I hit play, if I pick up an item, pick up a donut, all at the moment, at the end of the last one, I said if we click our tab key, which is our inventory, it just lists it in the top left corner. Can't do anything with it, we can't see it properly, gives us no real reference. So let's get to the UI. The UI, today we're going to make two UI elements. So let's go to our folder structure, and again make a new folder called UI. And in our folder, we've already got our HUD UI and our message, so we're going to add another widget blueprint, user widget. We're going to call this WDT for widget, and we're going to call it inventory slot. And we're going to make one more, and we're going to WDT underscore in main inventory. Now, before we forget and get too carried away, let's go to our character and actually implement the inventory itself. We can delete the code that we put on our toggle inventory here. I'll leave that open because I prefer to use started, it only hits it once. Before we connect anything, we're going to right click and we can say create a widget. And the widget is going to be our main inventory, which we just made there, although it's empty at the moment. First thing we're going to do is promote this to a variable. We're going to call it inventory UI reference. And because this is a toggle, we want it to do certain things. There's many different ways of doing it, but this is a way that I often do this sort of toggling, and it's a way I prefer it to work. I find it's very reliable, although it can look complicated. So the first thing we do then, now we've made this variable here, we're going to drag it in, we're going to right click it and convert it to a validated get. Okay, so this helps us with the toggle, whether it's valid or not valid. So let's just drag this down here. If it's not valid, in other words, if this is empty, we want to make it. So we make our widget, we populate the variable, then we can say add to viewport. So we add it to our screen so we can see it. Now, in order to interact with our items in our UI, we need to tell it that we want to see a mouse cursor and that we are in control in a UI as opposed to in the game world. That's quite simple. We right click, we get our player controller. Get player controller. You can do, and I've often done it, put this in a function to make it neater. In fact, we can go ahead and do that right now. So let's just drag down, let's make it into a custom event just to make it a little bit neater. Okay, so let's create a custom event, and we're going to say this set game mode. Okay, just makes it a little bit neater with our code. So from here, we're going to have an input in here. We're going to say in UI question mark. We're going to do a branch. Okay, so we're going to deal with that first. So with our player controller, we're going to say set show mouse cursor. Now we're in the UI through, so we want to see the mouse cursor. So we make sure that is checked. We can also do this in parallel. So we copy and paste this. If we're not in the UI, we don't want to see our mouse cursor. But again, depending on the game, we might already have that visible. And then we can drag off of here again. Do it like this, because this makes it a bit neater. We can drag off of here again, and we can say set input mode to game and UI, so that we can still have a reference to when we click the tab key again for our toggle and our inventory. Okay, the widget in focus, we're going to add our UI inventory reference to, and on this one we're going to say set input mode to game only. Okay, it doesn't need a widget, obviously, because there isn't a widget in game mode in this case. So we've got it in an event or function. It's going to make life a little bit easier here. So we can call that now. We can call our set game mode function. In this case, we're adding it to the viewport, so we are in UI. For some reason that didn't change that parameter name. Let me just refresh it. We compile it. Okay, because I didn't compile it. Okay, now you find it compiles nicely. So we want to check that. Now, if our UI is valid, we want to drag off with the UI reference. Oops. Remove from parents. We want to take it away from the screen. We want to set this to invalid, so the next time we hit the button, it will create the widget again. We want to keep recreating the widget and not just have a hard reference to it, because the inventory system is volatile, so we want to keep constructing it and refreshing the inventory. We could do it just once and then refresh inventory and display it on the screen. There are different ways of doing it. And we're going to take a copy of this. We're going to do this and we're saying not in the UI. So that's our toggle inventory function done, and a little helper function just to make things look a bit tidier, where I should have all of this on the end of here. Okay, let's start on our inventory elements. So we're going to open up our UI folder, and we're going to go to our, we're going to start with the inventory slot. Okay. The inventory slot is basically going to be a very basic container that holds the information that we can then click on and do something with. Okay, so we're going to start off, let's give ourselves a size box. We're going to click desired on screen, you see it goes to 0. And we're going to do a height and width override, so we're going to do 900 for here and 100 for here. We can change these values later if we find that they're not big enough, or they're too big, or whatever. And in here, we're going to put a button in our size box, and see it fills it up. Okay, if we click on our button here, it fills it up nicely. But we don't want it to be a grey button, we want to make it look our own way, make sure there's no padding. And also, before I forget, is focusable. I'm going to double check that. Is focusable. Please make sure you click this to off. Because the reason being is if we have it on, when we click on it, we have to then click outside of it to get our tab key working properly on our keyboard. So by clicking this focusable off, it doesn't do that. First of all, let's go ahead and set this up to look how we want. So instead of draw as a rounded box, we're going to draw as none. We want it empty. We're going to right click where it says normal. We're going to copy. We're going to paste it onto a hovered. And we're going to paste it onto the quest. Disabled already is. Okay. And now we're going to look for a border. We're going to put the border on the button. Okay, you see at the moment the border is tiny. Do it as 0 padding anyway. We're going to expand it to full width. But you'll see on the button, we've still got this gap around it you may or may not want. Okay. So let's get rid of that first. So we go back to our button. We go all the way down to where it says normal padding. And we'll just set that to 0. Now you see our border fills up our button nicely. We can make it look how we want it to look. So I want this, so we make sure we take off any padding to start with. We are going to draw this as a rounded box, and you'll see it automatically gives us rounded corners. We're going to go to fixed radius, and I'm going to use 10. I'm using my tab key to go through these. You see we've got a slight radius on here. We want an outline of about 3 width, and we're going to choose sort of a dark grey colour for the outline on this, just because the background I have in mind. And we're going to put that to 1. And you'll see now we have a background. We don't want to see the white here, so on tint, we're going to go to our alpha at 0. Now you see we have a nice frame, but whatever colour you choose. Then we're going to add a horizontal box. There's two reasons we do this, because A, we want to lay things out horizontally, and secondly, if we actually look at border, it says single tile. We want to add more than one thing on top of this border. So we could do an overlay and do it that way, but a horizontal box is ideal because it actually does what we want it to do. So we're going to add a horizontal box. We can add as many things in this as we like. The first thing we're going to do is, first we'll make sure our horizontal box has got no padding. It doesn't. Now, by having no padding, it means it's outside of our border. So we're going to set it to a padding now inside the border. So here is our horizontal box at padding of 10. Then we're going to add an image. Just drag it down, drop it on our box. We're going to click central. Oh, we're not going to click central. I did it in the wrong thing. Make sure our image, we're going to click central. And we're going to click top right or left. Now, it looks a bit small, so in our image size, we're going to add to 80 for the width and height. This is a nice size image. It just fills up our border nicely. And we're going to name this image as icon image. Make sure is variable is checked, which it is. Next thing I'm going to add in here is a text. I'm going to use a normal text field this time. Add it to our horizontal box. Make sure we highlight it so it's central. We don't want it up against our image, so let's give it some left padding. Let's say 10. Looks okay to me. Color, we're going to use the same color that we've used for our border. Again, up to you what color you want. And the font, we're going to use the same font we've used in our messaging system. Let's keep it all similar. Okay, and that's all we need for the design. Now in here, there is a little bit of code, nothing too serious. Just going back to the textbook, make sure is variable is on. We're going to name this to item name. Okay. Pilot. We're going to go into here. We do not need the pre-construct. We do not need the tick. We're going to do this on event construct. We're going to add a variable, and it's going to be called item. And that's going to be our item start. We're going to make sure it's instant editable, exposed on spawn, and you'll see why when we do the main UI. So we're going to drag this out. We're going to drag our item name out. And we're going to drag our icon image out. Need both, all three of these. Drag out from here, create item struct. For my data asset, we're going to want to get the item name. And we'll also want to get the icon. So from this item name up here, we're going to say set text. Now be careful you get the right one. We're going to use the function at the bottom under widget, set text, text. Make that to there. Make that to there. Nice and simple. From our icon image, we're going to say set brush. Now this gives us a huge amount of choices, but if you remember back, we made this as a soft object reference, text to 2D soft object reference. So we can look down here and we can say set brush from soft texture. And if we look, it's the same color, it joins up nicely, it's all happy. And that's all we need to do. If we could do set texture 2D, but we would then have to load this and then do more to add it. Whereas we've got this nice function, does it all for us, nice and easy. Now what we want to do is just nip back to our designer. We're going to go to our button, scroll down, and we're going to deal with the on-clicked event of the button. Now, because we're going to use this widget inside another widget, we can't just use this as it is. We want to be able to control that in our own way. And to do that, we use what's called an event dispatcher, which is basically what this is, but we're making our own. So we're going to make our own event dispatcher. We call it on inventory slot clicked. Give them meaningful names, and we use the word on, like you see on here, to help us to note that it is a event dispatcher. Now down here we can look at inputs. We're going to add an input, and it's going to be called item, and we're going to use item struct. Compile it. Now we're going to drag this in. We're going to click call. So when we click the button, it will call this. So basically it says, anybody that's listening, please do this. Now it's asked us for the item to put in, so we're going to put the item in. That is our plot completed. Okay, this one's going to be a bit longer. We're now going to go ahead and do the main UI, so this video could end up being about an hour long. But let's see how we get on. So we're now going to open up our main inventory UI. This one has a little bit more to it, but it's not that difficult. So the first thing we're going to start off with is a canvas panel. And then we're going to add a border. Now, we see when we drop the border onto our canvas panel, it goes to the top left. We can click on that, go to our anchors, and if we hold down Control and Shift and the full screen one there, it will fill up the whole screen. Okay, this is what we want. Now I could just say, okay, we're going to have a white background, like we see in many tutorials, but I wanted this to be a little different, and I want to show you straight off the bat how we can make it look a little bit nicer from the get-go. Now, in order to help me, I just went online, did a search for backgrounds, and what I've chosen for this is brought it into a folder called artwork. I brought in this texture here, basically a piece of paper, but you can have whatever you like. It's up to you. It's your game, your UI. You choose whatever you like, but just make sure that your texture is cropped as close as it is can to here, whether you draw it yourself or you download it. If you're downloading it and using it in your game, please be aware of the licensing agreements. Some just want attribution, some actually want to get paid for it. Make sure you add those correctly. Some of them are quite happy to have free use. So just check the license agreement before you go ahead and use it in your game. When you import any image into Unreal to use in the UI, it's good practice to set the texture group to UI. And the compression, is also user interface 2D. Okay. So what we're going to do then, we're going to use that as our border. So if I click on brush here, because I've selected it here, I pick the little arrow, and here is our border. Okay. Keep that. Make sure you keep the tint white, because if you don't, you can end up with some weird effects. If that's what you want, then fine, go ahead. But you can change the tint a little bit. But I don't want to do that. Okay, so we're just going to keep it white. And then we'll 0 for the padding to start with, because we can add our own padding as we go along. So very quickly and very simply, instead of just a boring block of color, we have something a little bit more interesting. Book, could be a stone, depending on how you want your UI to look. So inside our border, we're going to use a horizontal box. Put it in our border. Here's a horizontal box. It's set to fill. Now you see it's filling all out here, which means if we put something in our horizontal box, it's going to go outside our paper. So we're going to add some padding to our horizontal box. Make sure you've got it highlighted. And let's just try 60, and you can see it's already coming up. We're fine on our left, we're fine on our right and our top, but our bottom we're not. So let's add a bit more. Our bottom, let's say 80. Still not above these here, look. So let's go quite a bit higher. 120. Yeah, a little bit more. Let's go to say 130. Now you can see we're inside all our torn paper, so whatever we put in here, again, adjust it to your own image and your own preferences. So we're now going to add 2 borders to this, but because we're going to add 2, we're going to want them to be the same design roughly. We're going to add one, duplicate it, and then change anything that we need to change to that particular border. So we're going to look for border. Click on border. Now I'm going to go fill, so it fills up the whole screen. I'm going to name this as slots border. Okay. And we're going to make it look a little bit nicer. So first of all, we're going to get rid of padding. We're going to get in our tint. We're going to make it 0. We want to see our paper. We don't want to see the border. But we're going to give it a little bit of a shape. So we're going to make it as a rounded box. We're going to put a width of about 5 in here. Now, what color you use is up to you. I'm going to go ahead and use the grey. But another little tip you can do is you can use a little eyedrop and say, well, I quite like this dark color here. It's a bit subtle. We could use this color. So you could choose a color within inside there to sort of complement it, whichever way. But just for this, I'm just going to use the grey that we've already used in our other things. Now you see this is a rounded box. We don't want that. We're going to go to fixed radius, and it's quite big. We have a fixed radius of 20. And so right now, all we need to do in that, compile it and save it, and we're going to go ahead and just duplicate it. Now we have 2, a little bit close together here. So what we can do is we can add a little bit of padding. So let's go to the first one. For our padding, at right, we're going to add 10. We're going to go to the second one, and to our left, we're going to add 10. Now you see if I zoom in. My apologies, I put them in the wrong place. In borders, you have two places. I put it in the wrong place. It should be in here, not the content. That's what I'm looking for. Make sure it's the same in here. Get rid of that. 0. Okay, so now you see we've got a little gap between the two. We've got two borders within our thing, and like I said, what you can do is you can click on that, click off of it, and you can see what it's actually going to look like on your screen. So if you're not happy with something, you can change it. So let's work on our left-hand one first. Now, when you're designing your UI, whether you've got a reference drawing for it, you need to look at it carefully and see exactly how you're going to build a UI. Now, I'm going to keep this fairly simple, but I will show you how you can build up your UI. So what I'm going to want is a title, so it tells you what that box is. And I'm going to want somewhere to put all the different items that we pick up. So how are we going to do that? Well, we want to lay it in a vertical way. So we're going to look for a vertical box. We're going to drop that on there. Make sure it's set to fill. And give yourself a little bit of padding so you're not right up against the border. Remember, this is outside, so I'm going to give it some padding of 20. And you see it brings us inside our border here. So what are we going to want in our vertical box? We're going to want a title. Title is going to be text, so we're going to get a text. Again, just straight text. We're going to drop it on our vertical box. You can't really see it because it's white against white. But let's change that straight away. We're going to get color opacity. We're going to use our grey that we've been using. We're going to use our font that we've been using. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. Say that make it 30. And here we can fill in what it is. So we're going to say inventory content. Okay, it's a little bit light, so let's change it to bold. And let's centralize it in our box. So now we have our title. And to my mind, it's a little bit close to the top. And we're also going to want a little bit of space at the bottom. So let's add some padding. So let's add 10 to the top. That brings it down a bit more. And let's have some padding of, say, 20 at the bottom. So the next item is not right up against the text. And now the next thing we need in here, and the last thing we need in this side, is going to be a scroll box, because we have at least 20 items, a possibility of at least 20 items, or depending on how many slot contents you have to get through. We're not going to fit them all in here, so we need a scroll box so we can scroll down through our items. So we make sure we add that to a vertical box. Click on it. Make sure you fill. And I have no padding on that. What we need to do for that, we're going to give it a name, and we're going to go slot container, and we're going to make this a variable. Very important that make that a variable. Let's do this right hand side now. This basically is going to add information. When we click on an item, it's going to display stuff all about that item. And we're going to, okay, we call shop border 1. We're going to call this info border, just so we know when we come back and look at it at a later date where to find things. Again, it doesn't have to be a variable. Okay, we want to lay things out vertically again, so vertical box. And really we can set the vertical box to have the same padding as we had before, which was 20, I believe. And we're going to add a text again. And you could go ahead, in fact I'm going to just to save some time. We could say, because we want it as a title, we want it the same. Let's copy this and paste it on our vertical box. And that basically, that all we've got to do now is just change what it says. And this is going to be item information. Oh, don't want two eyes. Item information. Okay. And then what we're going to do now is, because we want to lay more stuff out vertically, but we want the ability to be able to clear what is in this box, we are going to add another vertical box to our vertical box. Click on it, make sure we fill. And again, there's no padding to this. But we can go ahead and we can add our text fields that we will fill in when we click the button. So let's go for a text box. We're going to add one to the vertical box. We're going to format it to our same color we've been using. Okay, so this first one is going to be our item name. So we're going to name it up here. Item name text. Make sure it's a variable. And let's have it centralized. And let's put it to our same font. And did I make it bigger? No, I didn't. It's default. Okay, so we'll keep it default. But again, you'll see that's right up against the top of here. So let's basically give it some padding. We'll do 10 padding all around. Okay. We're going to add another text box. You can just duplicate this, change it to how we want. We're going to call this item description. Make sure it's variable. And this time we don't want it central, we want it left justified. There you go. Left justified. Same font, same size. Everything's the same. Same padding. Make things nice and easy. Now we're going to want something that's going to have more than one item in it. So we're going to add another horizontal box to our vertical box. Now this horizontal box has 10 padding all around. Make it nice and neat. And we're going to keep it on auto. And in here we're going to add some or text. So we could copy one of these. So let's copy this, paste this. Let's keep it all nice and uniform. And first one here, we're just going to call title text. This one doesn't have to be a variable, but we're going to actually write something in this one. Quantity. Okay. And we're then going to duplicate this. And we're going to make sure this one's a variable, and we're going to call this one let's call this one QTY text. And that's a variable. And just to give us a marker, we're going to put 000 in here. Okay. And we have one more thing to add to here, and then this UI design is done. Now, make sure, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a button. Now, make sure you add this to the first vertical box, not the second vertical box. So it goes at the bottom like that, as you see. Okay. We're going to make sure it's set to auto, and I'm going to set it to be that side. Oh, click the correct one. That side, and you see it shrinks up there. Okay, so we're going to just change the style a little bit. So tint, we're going to put to 0. On the first one, rounded box is fine. Outline settings, they're fine, except for we're going to change the outline to our color that we've been using. And we're going to add text in there. And the text we're going to format how we formatted our other text. Okay. And just for now, we're going to put use. But later on, we're going to make this more dynamic. Okay. Now we don't see our border, even though we set it here and we know it's got a width. We don't see our border in our button. The reason for that is because we made our tint transparent and we're using the tint transparency. We need to uncheck that. And we're going to give it some padding of 5 on the top, bottom, and right hand side, just to make it a little bit inset. That's it for the design on here right now. So we're going to go ahead and first of all test that it comes up as a UI, and then we're going to show how we populate the information. So let's go ahead and play the game. If I click tab, you see it comes up. Click tab again, it goes away. But we have nothing in here, and this all stays here. So that's what we're going to do very shortly. Okay, I'm going to call this video here, and then we're going to, in the next episode, we're going to display items and add functionality to our UI. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share my videos. If you appreciate the work I do, please go ahead and look at my Patreon or buy me a coffee. Thank you. Bye.